Morning has broken. On this beautiful spring day in California, enjoy my lovely garden with my bird feeder there. We'll see if any birds visit us. And Morning Has Broken is kind of the signature song of the pop artist Cat Stevens as he traveled on his spiritual journey and took us all with him. So I'll explain why he had such heavy experiences that led him and propelled him into spirituality. In 1966, he started out as a pop singer in London, and he was fairly successful in the UK and almost like a teen idol kind of a thing. And did really well for about 3 years, and even did something called Baroque pop with orchestrations and that sort of thing. He was on the lighter side, not heavy rock or anything, but did great. And then in 1969, he became very ill. He was in the hospital for a year, bedridden with something like mono, just a terrible, debilitating disease that weakened him. And he almost died. So he definitely was propelled to become a spiritual person and find out what life is all about. And he sat in his bed in the hospital with his acoustic guitar, and he owned his style and his performance and wrote a lot of songs. And by 1970, he was back on his feet, and it was a new decade. And the 70s were more mellow. People did not want to fight anymore in the Vietnam War. They wanted peace. They wanted softer music like James Taylor and acoustic guitars and Carole King and with Tapestry. And they wanted a lot of introspective lyrics. It was a time to be alone and kind of sit around on pillows and apartments and patios and have conversations with people and just it was a really easygoing time. I remember it as a kid, and a lot of the psychedelic hard rock had kind of come to an end because Jimi Hendrix died, Janis Joplin died, Brian Jones died, and Jim Morrison died. And Dwayne Allman. So back to back, all of these hard rockers that were heavy into drugs died. Five stars. So it really kind of shocked a lot of people, and there was a shift and a change in the winds, and mellow and folk and acoustic sounds were very popular in 1970. And James Taylor was huge around that time, and Cat Stevens was fit right in, fit like a glove. So his record comes out in 1970, and now he's on the pathway to being a superstar, to being one of the fresh new voices of pop music. And he has big hit records like Wild World and Peace Train and The Morning is Broken. And he wrote The First Cut is the Deepest, which I think is one of the best songs in pop. But Rod Stewart had the hit record with it, not him. But he did wrote it. And so there's a lot of credibility that comes with it. And years later, Sheryl Crow did it and brought that song back to a whole new generation. So Cat Stevens is kind of timeless in what he did during his reign on the pop charts. So he starts touring all around the world and big jets and hotels and huge concert halls, and he's enjoying it on one hand, but it's isolating to him, and he kind of puts his spiritual journey on the back burner or to the side for a while. And he even puts out a record called Buddha and the Chocolate Box because he found himself on an airplane with one hand holding a statue of the Buddha, and in the other hand was a box of the finest chocolates and physical pleasure that money can buy. And he was caught between the two. He loved both of them and was kind of curious which way the wind was going to blow with his life. And On that record, there's a lovely song called "Oh Very Young," and it's very delicate and whimsical. And he brings in different instruments and a female vocalist, and it's just a really classy song. I mean, he was on the classy end of the top 40 for sure, with "Morning Is Broken" and "Oh Very Young." It was a spiritual element to the songs even then. So he continues with major success. He does an album about numerology and magic numbers, and he's kind of dabbling into different areas of New Age or the occult, just trying to really find his spiritual path in life. And he has a huge hit record called "Another Saturday Night," and I Ain't Got Nobody. It's a perfect song for around 1975, and it's one of his rockers. He doesn't have too many, but it's one of his rocker songs, and really fun, and it brings him to a new level of popularity. I remember that song all over the radio around 75, and he puts out a greatest hits record that's just massive. It's one of those timeless greatest hits that captures the early 70s, and it just sells on and on it all throughout the decades. It's evergreen music. It keeps selling, in the catalog. So that's one to definitely buy if you're into exploring Cat Stevens. And then around 76, he does this huge tour of the US and the world called Magic Cat, spelled with a K. And he brings in magicians and they do magic tricks. And it's an early use of multimedia. It's really cool. Try to find it on video or audio. He's like disappearing inside these boxes and then reappearing on stage. And Doug Henning was really big at the time with magic and those Broadway shows and things, and he kind of captured that moment of bringing magic and showbiz elements into the rock theater performance. So that was another big peak for Cat Stevens. That was around 76. And also at this time, he is in Malibu, California, and he's swimming in the ocean, which, as anyone from LA can tell you, the riptides are very dangerous. You have to be careful. So he went out swimming. He did not have a paddleboard or a boogie board, which he should have. And the currents swept him away in Malibu. Malibu can be very treacherous. And he went out to sea. He was lost at sea and thought he was going to drown. Absolutely. And at that point, he kind of cried out to God and said, I will dedicate my life to spirituality. Please save me. And the tide did bring him back. And it was a life altering experience for him. He became on an even deeper spiritual search after that. So in 77, another record comes out, very popular, called Is It So? He's on the cover with a yo-yo. It's really whimsical and fun, and another top 10 record for Cat Stevens. And the song was called Remember the Days of the Old Schoolyard, and that was on the radio. And I always think of it fondly, like we all have this time in the schoolyard where we played, like in my day, it was tetherball, which was really popular, and kickball, and that was like the highlight of our life, getting out of class for 30 minutes to go play these games. It was such a big deal. The Jungle Gym bars and all of that stuff, it just all comes back to me in that song. He had a way of capturing the moment with almost like photographic visuals in your mind. So that was the big record I remember at the time. Remember the Days of the Old Schoolyard. And there's an early music video of that too. It's like way before all the crazy MTV videos. It's just really earthy and natural and fun. And it's kind of the way they were called promotional clips, how they were in the 70s, just very down to earth and relaxed and natural. So by 78, he's decided that Islam is his faith and his path, and he wants to convert to Islam and move on with his ministry. But he has one more record to make for the company. So he goes back into the studio with his best friends and producers, the people that knew him well from the beginning, and they just put out a fantastic record of their final songs, and it's called Back to Earth. There's a beautiful photo of a waterfall on the front, and he did go back to Earth one last time and did this great, it's an acoustic pop rock record. At the very end of 78 it comes out, and it eventually does well, and I think went platinum, but at the time disco was huge, and so it wasn't as part of the mainstream culture as he used to be a few years back, but still it's a great record for his fans, and I love it. And there's one more rocker on there called Bad Breaks. I definitely recommend you listen to Bad Breaks. That's the cool cat, the earthy rocker with the acoustic guitar, one last time. And then he does one last big concert. It's a peace concert in 79. And then he gets married to an Islamic woman, and he changes his name to Yusuf, and his music career is now over. And he goes into the ministry and does peace events and projects all over the world, like UNICEF and things like that. So he does a lot of good works. And then in '84, a final greatest hits part 2 comes out called Footsteps in the Dark. So if you want to check out his later music, I mean, that is a really great thing for his fans in the '80s to have Footsteps in the Dark and beautiful pictures of him on the cover, and his final works. And then you don't hear too much about him in the '80s and '90s, just like at peace rallies and things. And I think he's based in Europe, so in the US we don't hear too much about him. But around, I think, 2003 or so, he decides he can do American pop music again, and he comes back. And he has a hit record called Father and Son, which he kind of remakes as a duet with a current pop singer in the UK. So it brings him back into the top 10 in the UK. And I think the singer's name was Ronan Keating from a boy band or something. So that kind of relaunches him, and he puts out a record under the name Yusuf Cat Stevens called Another Cup, and I love it. I highly recommend it. It's really beautiful music. And then he follows with Road Singer, which has a great video of him in a VW bus, and he's back to what he does best, doing this really cool acoustic pop rock music. And at this point, he's a beloved artist, heritage artist, and the greatest hits have sold in the millions by this point, because people love music from that era, the '70s. It was such a incredible decade of music and creativity. So he still carries on to this day, doing albums. He has a new one called King of the Land, and he's a very talented songwriter. Still at the top of his game. His voice is a little weaker. If you want to hear his strong voice at his best, I would get like Is It So or Back to Earth, or, Tea for the Tillerman, or one of the classic '70s records that he did. And by the way, he also did the soundtrack for Harold and Maude, which was a really popular movie at the time about a young boy and an older woman. And he did a really fun soundtrack for Harold and Maude. So you might see some of those songs sprinkled in his greatest hits and in his concerts and such. So anyway, he's still of the Islamic faith, and able to balance it with pop music. He found his way, and it resonates with me. I grew up Christian and kind of really got into New Age, and kind of found my balance with religious science, which is Center for Spiritual Living. And that's my anchor, my faith that I enjoy every Sunday, having a church family. And whatever your pathway is, I hope you find that rock or that anchor in life, because the ocean of life is very bouncy. The waters are very choppy. All kinds of things can happen. It's very unpredictable. I've been on this planet for a while, and that's what I can tell you. So find some kind of anchor or a rock to hold on to, and some sort of pathway or spiritual faith. And I'll leave you with that. I'm Mike D at downpeppertreelane.com, and like and subscribe and share the love back to me. All right, namaste. Bye bye.